A lot of people finance these cars instead of paying them off in cash is because they don't keep them that long.
I don't understand that statement. Buying it doesn't really make any sense, okay? It doesn't. It doesn't even make any sense to buy this car, knowing that you're gonna sell it and take a hit on it pretty quickly. It's not good investment sense at all. He's leaving out a big detail that, you know, as a good investor, you'd want to share. It's a terrible investment. Let's go ahead and get this thing started.
In today's video, I want to walk you guys through how much money do you need to make in order to afford one of these bad boys right here, a Ferrari 488 Spider. Now, some of y'all might say, well, goodness gracious, you can't afford it unless you can just pay cash for it.
I would agree with that. You can afford it. You really can't afford a car like that unless you can pay cash for it. But I'll even go one step further. You can't afford that car unless you can afford to buy 20 of them cash. Because if you can't afford to pay cash for it or to buy 20 of them, then you really already have your priorities screwed up, because I would never consider buying a car like that. I won't spend on a car even 1% of my worth. You know what I mean? I wouldn't spend 1% of my worth on a car. I just wouldn't do it. You know, I have higher standards of making money and having money put away. Some of the questions he asked to me are kind of more consumer, not really. You know, I don't know. You know, I get the feeling, he makes his money from his channel here, and that's fine. And I don't know how much money he makes in stocks. Just already saying, you'll see more. I'm a little bit ahead of you, so we'll watch some more of this. But yeah, listen, if you can't afford to pay cash for a car like that, you shouldn't be buying it. Let's keep watching.
Well, gotta let you guys in on a little secret. Most folks that buy these cars, although they have the cash to pay for it in cash, they don't pay for them in cash. A lot of times they'll lease them, or they'll simply just take a loan out. Now, in my garage.
Now, what he didn't mention is interest. Okay, so interest rate matters, right? I mean, I can tell you, I bought a Porsche Cayenne. I could have bought 10 of them, no problem, at the time that I bought it. But I financed it. But the reason I financed it is because like a 2.9% interest, really crazy low interest rate that was offered at the time. And that's why I did it.
I got 3 cars. I got the 488, I got an RS6 Avant, and I got a Lambo truck, Urus Lamborghini. Now, my Urus Lamborghini and the RS6 are paid for. I just paid cash for them. But on this guy right here, I didn't. And the reason I didn't pay cash, number one, it was more expensive than my other 2 cars. But also, I thought about the opportunity costs associated with taking, $300,000 out of my investments, out of my cash flow, and just paying off this car. Now, although I love this car, it's not an appreciating asset. It's a depreciating asset. So when I go to sell it, I'm gonna get less than what I paid for it. So for me, paying for it in cash didn't make any sense.
So I'm gonna just say right there, buying it doesn't really make any sense, okay? It doesn't. It doesn't even make any sense to buy this car, knowing that you're gonna sell it and take a hit on it pretty quickly. It's not good investment sense at all. Oh, let's say like Manny Koshbin, right? If you guys know who Manny Koshbin, and he's got, I don't know, probably $10 million in cars, maybe $20 million in cars. But what Manny does when he buys a car, I think he's probably got a Bugatti, a Chiron. He's got some of these, super wildly crazy McLaren. But when he buys them, he buys kind of like one of a kind. In other words, when he buys those cars, they are an investment. When he buys them, they're special for one reason or another, where he anticipates making money on them. So he looks at them as an investment. So he still gets crazy, far more expensive car than even this. So he gets awesome car, but he's got a strategy behind it, that it's worth considerably more than he's paying for it, or it will be worth as much or more in the future when he sells it, which I like that. That makes sense. You're buying it under market, right? Either way, I'm not crazy about buying a depreciating asset. I'm not. And then I'm going to explain more about how I buy cars.
What I'll do, I'll take a loan out for it, make monthly payments, and then I'll take the $300K and I'll keep it in the stock market to multiply itself.
Okay, now already you guys know I can't stand the stock market, and I've never seen anybody come close to making the money I make with stocks as I make with real estate. Let's keep watching.
And if you know anything about the stock market in 2024, I was right to do that because it was a monster year, right? But back to how much do you need to make to pay for one of these things? Now, this particular one right here, my monthly payment is about $2,500 per month. So what kind of income do I need to have in order to afford that?
Now, again, he didn't speak to interest. When he doesn't speak to the interest that he's paying on that, what percentage of that $2,500 a month is interest? He's leaving out a big detail that as a good investor you'd want to share.
Before we get into the income, let me tell you some things that I think are important that, if you're going to go out and buy one of these, you need to have in your financial picture. Number one, you can't have any other consumer debt, right? I mean, no credit card debt, no student loan debt, no payday loan debt. Can't have any other kind of debt. That's number one. And then number two, when you look at these type of cars.
Well, you can have, listen, I've got, millions and millions of dollars in debt, but I make money on all that debt, right? In other words, whatever I'm paying the bank, I'm making twice again. In other words, I pay 3%, I'm probably making 6 on the borrowed money. Or vice versa. Actually, if I'm paying 6, I'm probably making 3, something like that.
What percentage of my income should I really be spending on a car payment? The rule of thumb is you should not be spending any more than 10% of your income on a car. Matter of fact, on an exotic car like this, you probably need to be about 5%. Now, lucky for me, I own my own business. I know how to generate cash, and I make way more money on a yearly basis than what it costs to service the debt on this car. You're talking about $30,000 a year in debt service. When you tack on the insurance, let's say it costs me $2,000 a year to insure it. So that's $32,000 a year for the next, 6 years, it would cost me, right? So I should be somewhere in that $300,000 per year range if I'm talking about 10%. I should be in that $600,000 a year range if I'm talking about, and I will tell you, I make above both of those numbers. So I can justify paying $2,500 a month plus another, $2,000 a year to insure this thing. I can get away with that because I make a lot of income.
Okay, so he's really talking like a typical consumer. When he says that I don't spend more than 10% of my income, or that's the rule, somewhere he got that rule, or 5% on more of a supercar or expensive car. And I understand to a degree the reasoning there, I do.
Also, my net worth is in the 7-figure range. So I got liquidity through investments in cash that I could pay this thing off if I did get into a financial bind and I couldn't make the monthly payment anymore. Let's say my income disappeared and I just don't have no income coming in. Then I could go to my investments or go to my cash reserves, take out the money and pay this off.
Starting out in the adult world, you got to have, number one thing you got to have is good transportation, right? I don't care if you have nothing to your name. You got to have a decent car. You want to be on time. You don't want to destroy your value as an employee or as a business person. You're not showing up on time. I mean, you just destroy your credibility as a business person immediately when you're late to anything. Anyways, so I'd say it's fine to get a fine car in the beginning just because you're beginning. But after that, if you're going to start spending, bigger money and stuff, then yeah, it's got to be like a nothing to you.
Another reason a lot of people finance these cars instead of paying them off in cash is because they don't keep them that long.
I don't understand that statement. He said one of the reasons people finance these things is because they're not going to keep it that long. Actually, I think that would be a better argument for paying cash for it. If you're not going to keep it that long, you're just going to get your cash back anyways. But it really doesn't make any sense to me, because how does that matter? How does that matter if you're going to keep it or not? The reason they finance it is because they're not going to keep it that long. It doesn't matter. Loss is still a loss, right? It doesn't matter if you buy the car for $300 and you sell it for $250. What's the matter if you lost $50 cash or either way? You got to pay the bank. You lose. It's the same either way, which you lose. So I don't understand the financing aspect of that.
For me personally, I won't keep this car for 6 years. I got the loan, I believe, for 6 years, 6 or 7 years. I got the loan, but I won't keep it that long. I'll probably keep it 1 year, and then I'll get rid of it and I'll get something else.
Okay, so listen, I would just tell you, Richard, right now, if you're only going to keep the car a year, just buy last year's model. Let somebody else, take it in the shorts on the depreciation. I seriously doubt the cars change much from 1 year to the next.
Okay, $32,000, I'm gonna keep this thing 1 year, go ahead then and take the loan. As long as the $300,000 that I would have spent to pay cash is in the market and it returns to me more than $32,000, which of course in 2024 it did. So
let's talk about that for a second. So I'm gonna give you he's talking about, I think he made 50% or something, or overall, or 25%. So on $300,000 he would have made $75,000. So he justifies it how he does. Listen, I bought 4 houses for $300,000 a piece, roughly. Some have bought less, some have paid a little bit more. I'm making over $100,000 on each of those houses. In other words, make $100,000 on $300,000 in a couple months, right? I just had one that I actually kind of did what I call leapfrog, and if you have my book, you know what I'm talking about. I wouldn't feel so comfortable with what he's talking about with the stock because he had a good year. You know what I mean? A chance of you repeating that again and again, not likely from what I've seen.
That $300,000 I would have spent, I didn't spend it. I kept it in the market, and just my S&P 500 ETF alone returned, I believe, 25% in 2024. So you can see right there, I made way more than what the monthly payment was, right? I was in FTEC, the Magnificent Seven. I was in the video. So
look, I'm going to tell you a guy that had the best car advice I've ever heard in my life, ever. Okay, and that's a guy named Charles Givens. This guy here was a great, really just a smart, really cool dude. I can't remember when he died, been a while, but this guy here, Charles Givens, and he wrote a book called Wealth Without Risk. And I recommend it. I'm not saying every chapter he has in the book is perfect. He talks about, having some insurance and canceling others and just kind of the odds on that thing. But what I come away with his book, when he first come out, he just said, buy your dream car, buy the car of your dreams 3 years late. In other words, buy the car of your dreams, like, 2 years old, Wealth Without Risk. I urge you get that book. It's an old book, but it's a smart book, right? It was a smart guy. But what he had said that really stuck with me was buy the car of your dreams used. Just buy the car of your dreams 2 years old, right? Buy it 2 years later, and you'll save a shit pot full of money. And he was right.
does it make sense to finance one of these things, or do you believe you should just pay cash for it? I know some of you do believe if you can't pay cash, then guess what?
He's struggling
You
with
can't
that
afford it.
question.
I don't quite believe that,
No,
but I told you what the parameters are for me.
All right, we don't hear that again. We heard the parameters. It is a cool looking car.
Like I said, now I
It's
got
pretty, it's cute.
the Lamborghini Urus in the garage as well, and I got the RS6 Avant, which is my
I'm gonna
David.
show you my cars next.
Both of those guys are in the garages, and but yeah, man, look at this thing. I'm gonna let you guys. Now, forgive me. I've been driving, and
I'm actually not a huge car guy, but it's kind of, oh man, you gotta look at this. Oh.
and honestly, it's dirty.
Look at that. That is filthy. Look at that. You see that? That is disgusting. No, I'm kidding.
I got some other stuff in here, my wallet and my second cell phone. But as you can see, man, this thing is carbon. Let me just move my little seat thing that I drive with. But check out those seats, man, with the yellow stitching. You got the yellow rev counter right there. I'm trying not to get in this thing. Carbon fiber everywhere, guys. The whole thing is carbon fiber.
So just think about this. If he loses, whatever, spends $30,000 a year on interest or whatever it is, or somewhere close to that, and then he loses another 60 on depreciation. He loses $100,000 on this car. It's a terrible investment. Okay. Anyways, nice job, Richard, sharing what you shared. Appreciate that. Totally disagree with your sensibilities on it, but not completely. It's just a little bit more consumerish. Not so. I don't think it's a real savvy investor would buy like that, invest like that, to be quite honest. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that video. There's nothing like real estate, and I always like to share my students. My students are extremely successful, and they've kind of done very, very well with real estate. You want to learn how to make millions of dollars in real estate? I've made tens of millions over my lifetime, and I'm showing people how to do it. Get in my free webinar. I have it every Thursday, 7 p.m. Central. Go to the link below, FlipAnythingUSA.com/webinar. Sign up for it. You can talk to me face to face if you want. Don't waste any time. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. You don't want to miss my channel. I've been doing it for years.